I wrote this little poetry. आजकल अपने ही शहर से मुलाकात होती है, दोस्त ज्यादा मिलते नहीं पर बात होती है, दुनिया बनाने वाले का हुनर दुनिया घूम कर देखते रहे, आजकल अपने आसपास ही उसके हुनर की तलाश होती है.
English language is such an elastic language that the same thing can be spoken in so many different ways. Today we have with us an exponent of English language and an educationist who has gone on to become a founder principal of a public school. Welcome to Sip and Talk with Vikram, Ms. Aradhana Rana.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Honored to be on your show.
Mrs. Rana, you have seen the world in your times and you have seen the changes, as they say, the proverbial river Thames passing by, So how do you relate yourself to the student that you were in school and the principal that you are in school?
Thank you, Vikram. First of all, really a pleasure being on your show. I was apprehensive that one day you'll become a celebrity and then you won't interview people like us. So I'm glad it's happened before. So Vikram, my journey, in life has been very, very interesting. And, I'm really not one of those kinds who believes in comparing what was there in our times and what is there now, which I think as you age, you are very tempted to do that. Because there were good and bad things then, and there were good and bad things now. So when we were growing up as a student, fortunately, I had the good fortune of going to great institutions. So my education journey, I cannot relate it to children today, because everybody is in their own space. And I see adults of my age who have not had this good fortune. So it's very difficult to compare. And like a lot of people say, we were very hardworking, these children are not. And, we studied and these children do not. It's not true. We had a different kind of atmosphere. We rose to that challenge. And these children are rising to this challenge. So I think it's very unfair to compare the two ages together.
Indeed, it is unfair to compare, but as you can see that, the change of boards or the change of standards or the change of the material that has been provided to the students, I mean, coming from an ICSE pattern and now seeing the CBSE, I see a huge ocean of a change in the two patterns. So indeed, as you said, the students of now have their own challenges. So you have, alongside your role as an educationist, you have also taken up the cause of, being an exponent of English language, and you brought out a set of books for the adults to have a better spoken English. So talk us through that.
Vikram, I don't know, it is very surprising, but I am not an English postgraduate or an English graduate at all. I'm an MSc in Foods and Nutrition, basically. So, how English came into my life is I got married to an army officer, and an army officer's wife has very limited opportunities. You just do what you get. And that's what makes us so versatile. So as we moved from station to station, I somehow got jobs in schools, and I was required to teach English because everywhere there's a paucity of English teachers. And if you speak English well, you are offered English, whether you are a science graduate, postgraduate, anything. So that is how I started teaching English. I forgot about my nutrition, and I have taught English to almost all grades in various schools. So with this kind of a background, I somehow developed a passion for the language. It is such a fantastically beautiful language. It is, and because it follows no rules, there is an exception to every rule. So
I think it
gradually,
is the most grammarless language, if I can say that.
yes, and we teach it with grammar. So I was zero. I mean, I did not know what a phrase or a clause was, and here I was required to teach the students. And I realized they would never need it either, because if I was teaching English without knowing what a phrase and clause was, it's okay. So I started teaching them usage English right from the beginning. And I think that somehow worked with the students also, because grammar is very boring. And if you teach it as usage, they use it every day, it becomes interesting. So that was the beginning of it. Again, I still never thought of doing anything in English. My life was carrying on as a teacher. Then we got posted to Delhi. So, after so many years, when we got posted to Delhi, I thought I must try out something different. So I walked into a placement agency and I told them, I said, I want to work, and I don't know what I'm good at, because I've always taught, but anything. So we had a half an hour interview, and then he told me, he says, you become a placement agency agent. So I said, what's that? He says, you got to go to various offices and you got to ask them what kind of personnel they want. I said, well, it's exciting. I'll meet a lot of people. So I took it up. And then just on the, I think, third or fourth day, I went to one of the companies and we got talking, and he says, oh, we're thinking of opening a placement agency. Why don't you open it for us? I said, I'm 4 days old in this profession and I know practically nothing. He says, no, you'll be able to do it. I've seen you, and the way you deal with the clients, it's very good. So he made me a little cabin and he says, you run a placement agency. And then I employed 2 people and I started running this placement agency. So now, that is the time I realized that we had files full of biodatas where people were coming and asking us for jobs. And there were equally thick files of requirements from people who wanted personnel, but they would not match. And most of it would not match because people would fail at interviews. So we were dealing with mid-level and high-level employment. So in that level, they would go for interview and they would fail. So I would counsel them about personality development and, sort of gear them up. Now, that is the tenure. I ran that placement agency for 2.5 years. And then my husband got posted and he was taking over command. So I left everything and I went back to teaching. But somehow it stuck in my mind that, I was not exposed to that whole population who suffers because they don't know a language. In India, it's got tremendous effect on your whole life. If you're English speaking, I think you're in a different space altogether, whether we like it or not, but that's the truth. So this is how, it stuck in my mind. And then a few years later, my husband thought of taking premature retirement. So he just left for one tenure and I stayed back in Ahmednagar. And I was somehow not happy teaching in a school because, every day doing the same thing, what you're supposed to do. So I was thinking of venturing out, and I decided to start spoken English classes. So fortunately, there's an MBA institute here. They asked me and said, would you train the MBA students? And you won't believe, Vikram, but I was teaching them basic things of use of has, have, was, were, the, articles. With that, because they were MBA students and they couldn't achieve anything unless they knew good English. So I was just taking spoken English classes. Then I started my own institute. I thought there was tremendous potential. So now when I started my own institute, I had doctors, teachers, any kind of professional students, everybody coming to me. And the journey started then because I would, ask them to do group discussions. They had the ideas, but they couldn't communicate. So, all the mistakes they made in their English language, I would, come back and make worksheets and the next day go back to improve the grammatical errors. So these worksheets, I had such a pile of them that eventually I thought I'll put it into a book. And that is how my first book came along. And I ran the institute for about 5-6 years, and then my husband finally came back, after finishing whatever he had to do. And then he was at a loose end because an army officer, out of the army, doesn't know what to do. So he said what to do. So we thought we'll open a school. And the school, when we opened, I really didn't want to get into the school. Basically, it was open because he wanted it. And then when he started with the first preschool, after that he required me because of my qualifications, and I was the qualified principal, so I had to join him. And I had to close down my institute because eventually, I was working in the evening, he was working in the morning, so we would never meet. So then I closed down my institute and took over this school. So we started from class 1 and we built it up. Now, during this time, since I had written my first book, this book had a very interesting, I don't know, it's long, but the book had a very interesting journey. I thought writing a book was like putting worksheets together and write a book. So I didn't know ABC of computers. Vikram, you won't believe, but I wrote a 400-page book with one finger typing. And went through tears, bad health, everything, but I completed it, and I took it on a CD, and I took it to a printer, and I said, okay, now print my book. So he says, what, madam, आप ये क्या बोल रहे हैं, print your book? ऐसा थोड़ी होता है, ये तो word में है. So I said, what else does it have to be in? He says, at least PageMaker. I said, I don't know PageMaker. So, he looked at my face, and I was so determined. So he says, okay, I'll teach you a little bit, you do it. So he taught me for 4-5 days. I went into his cubby hole, I learned PageMaker. Then I did this whole book on PageMaker. Then, he was somehow so taken in by my enthusiasm that he left all his job and he printed my book. So that is that first book, Communicate with Ease, Speak in English, Please. We designed the cover, and I was so happy with the book. And then it was cheaper to get, 5,000 copies. So I got 5,000 copies thinking, it's such a wonderful work of art and people are going to, lap it up. So I had these 5,000 copies in my house, in my bedroom. And then
I bet you still have them under your bed.
No, but it was very good because I went almost door to door selling my book because I was so convinced that it was the thing that happened to the world. So then it was taken in by a few institutions. I sent a copy to the MT Directorate in the Army. So they liked it and they recommended it for all the Army institutions. So eventually I managed to sell 4,500 almost of those books.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So, but then I had reached the end of it and I didn't know where else to market it. So next time I came to Delhi, I went to Daryaganj scouting for a publisher. And that is where, I think the second publisher I saw, the board was nice, their logo was nice. So I just walked in. I said, this is my book. I want a publisher. So very good people I met, the Anne Books, the Kapoors. So he said, the book is fantastic. We'll take it up. And then they printed it under their own publishing house. And then it was called Communicate with the English Communication Made Easy. So, my book, since I was scrounging on paper, was 250 pages. The same book became 400 pages. And it was more readable. They put a professional touch to it. So that, of course, they marketed it. We ran into 3 editions. And one day I was just surfing through Google and what do I see? My book is being recommended by Rajasthan University as the course book. So that was a beautiful journey. And then when I started the school, I thought, why not do it with kids? So that's a series. Then I wrote English Matters. And of course, I was wise enough by now. And a publisher took it up. He published it. It's been on for 10 years in various schools. And now things have changed. The NEP coming in, English teaching has changed. So now I've come up with this series again, Master English, keeping in mind the fun activities, the more fun in the language and activity book, that kind of a thing.
So you went down, first you went to work with the adults, then you went down to the basics, that why not catch them young and train them when you are young. So you brought out this series for the kids.
Yes.
And what was the response for this series for the kids? I mean, the kids are too young to judge anything that is good for them, but How did the parents respond, and how
You
did
know,
this take off?
Vikram, I'm so happy to say that people, when parents come to my school for admission, they tell me, हमने सुना आपका grammar teaching बहुत अच्छा है. So we have heard that about the school, and we have come here. In fact, one of the schools, they had my book prescribed from their school, but the publisher had some problems, so he wasn't giving them adequate copies. So last year they changed over to another book. And this year we had two parents coming to us, can we shift our children here? Because same city, because, they have discontinued with the English matters, and we found that was doing such wonders. So we want to shift our kids here. So I told them, I said, no, you can keep them in that school. My master English is coming. The school will take it now. So these sort of things really make me very, very proud and happy that, parents are liking it, teachers are liking it. I'll tell you why, because it's not boring grammar. It is very usage English. It is what you and I would like to talk about. Of course, the grammar background is given, but the basic structure of the book is getting your tongue used to English. So a lot of speaking exercises, a lot of role plays, so that children speak and learn. The way we've learned. I've never learned grammar, but yet I don't make grammatical mistakes.
No, we were given that sleep medicine called Ren and Martin. We grew
Yes.
up with that. I'm sure you have grown up with that as well.
No, ISC board had that. I studied in a CBSE board. No, we didn't have Ren and Martin. We hardly had any grammar. Yet somehow we spoke English, and I wrote poetry in English. I used to, do a lot of pressy writing in English. My English was very good because we just spoke English. And I do not belong to an English speaking home. And yet, since I was in the hostel, so I suppose I was all the time there, and we spoke English, and we just spoke good English.
So you also are into poetry, right?
Poetry took a backseat after school, frankly. I never did any poetry. But now, now that I have the time, and COVID, it's keeping me indoors. So it's just that I don't know how it started, but we were going out for a lot of these treks and a lot of picnics during this time, because that's all we could go for. And I think the nature, the whole, I think, idea of being indoors in a time like this it made me a little philosophical. And I've studied in Pilani in Rajasthan for 4 years. So my Hindi is quite good. And somehow, I don't know why, I enjoy Hindi poetry more than English. It somehow connects to me better. So
maybe it comes out from the heart.
from the heart, yes. So I just started writing poetry because I just come back, make a video, and just see a video, and it would just come naturally. I never tried to write poetry, but these days, yes, it's my latest fad of writing Hindi poetry.
Maybe you could oblige us with a couple of lines reading out of.
Okay, now this is about, when we started going for these picnics. I used to travel abroad every year for a month and a half, and I'd love to see the world. All that stopped. So when we started going for picnics, I think this is the first one I wrote on the video. We went into fields and little hillocks. So I wrote this little poetry. आजकल अपने ही शहर से मुलाकात होती है, दोस्त ज्यादा मिलते नहीं पर बात होती है, दुनिया बनाने वाले का हुनर दुनिया घूम कर देखते रहे, आजकल अपने आसपास ही उसके हुनर की तलाश होती है, निकल पड़ते हैं कभी खंडरों और दयारों में, कभी खेतों में खलियानों में या दिलकश नजारों में, कुछ दोस्त मिलकर बांटते हैं चंद खुशियां, तो जिंदगी मुस्कुराहट की बारात होती है.
Wow, beautiful. So this brings me to a thought. You see, mostly in India, I mean, when people speak in English, they think in their own vernacular and then they translate it while speaking. Is
Yes.
that an impediment for fluency in speech?
It's a huge impediment. I think practically everybody does it people who do not speak English regularly as a language, they are bound to do this. So this is what I want to, get into children, not to think in their vernacular language. And that comes when your tongue and mind get used to the English grammar. Now, grammar, if you teach it as grammar, they possibly cannot think of grammar and, think, okay, which verb now, where, which article, they cannot think about it. So it has to be at the back of your mind. And yet, when you speak, it should come out naturally. So that is with a lot of repetition. So what we have is a lot of exercises where, we teach them a bit of grammar, the basic structure of grammar, why it's the logic of grammar. And then after that, we say, okay, now you don't have to, never tell them to underline the verb, underline the adjective, or pick out, say whether it's an adjective or a verb. So after that, the exercises are all usage exercises. They have to read the exercises as if there's nothing missing. So they're no fill in the blanks. They're just little 4 dots, there, so that they can't write. So that is a basic structure I use to teach English.
That's great. And you are also a travel blogger. I've seen your travel blogs where where you write your experiences about different places. So how did it come across to you to do that?
In the army, you neither have the time nor the money to travel while you're in service. So when you retire, all your responsibilities are over. By then, your children have got married, you've built a house or whatever. So you don't have to save for anything. So that's why you have more money after you retire, and then you have the time. I always was very interested in traveling, but somehow could not. But after he took retirement, we made it a point that I think 30th of April, we just took a flight out. And then we came back when the schools opened on 1st of June. So 1 month we spent out. But this 1 month meant I had put in about 6 months of work in this travel. We don't believe in any of these conducted tours or anything. So I would study the place. I would, where we were going. Now Google is so good. So normally I would even know the street where we were living, where we had to catch a bus from, where we go. So all this homework, I think, makes travel more exciting, because by the time you go to a country, you know practically everything about it. You're not lost. So this 6 months of work I put in for that 1 month of travel. And when I put in that much and I go and we travel outside, fortunately, my husband shares this interest. So we don't have a bicker over it. So when I do that, I just thought I would, at least catalog it. It's very interesting to read because so many things you forget later. So I was doing it for my own self, and then first couple of years, and I lost the diary. And then I thought, no, this is, you would lose so much of precious work. So then I started writing on Facebook, thinking that it will be safe there. But once I started writing on Facebook, people started getting interested, and they edged me on to write blogs. So then I created this page, My Wanderlust. And every day that we travel, I just write the whole day's, not factual accounts, because anything that you get on Google, I don't write. Because that you can, in any case, find out from.
Yeah, that will be just a repeated information.
Yes, it's basically what you felt, what you experienced, what you thought of a place, some little anecdotes, some people you met. So that connects you. Even if you read it after 4 years, it's as interesting. So that is how I started writing the blog. And religiously, no matter how tired I am, but every day before sleeping, I write the blog and sleep. So my travels are very well chronicled. And during this COVID times, I had planned this fantastic tour to Croatia and Greece and Russia. So that, since I couldn't do, so I did a virtual travel. And every day I was writing the same way that I would imagine things. And since I'd done so much homework, I had the pictures and I had, all the factual information. So that also came out, I think, very beautiful, because a lot of my friends would, caution me that Corona times, please don't go, please don't, come back. It's very unsafe. So they thought it was real. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
interesting. It kept my mind off this whole pandemic, and not for a day during this time have I felt, oh, life is going by, what's happened. I don't watch the news too often. So, this correctly speaking, I wrote during that time, which was a book for adults, and basically spoken English and more conversational English. So that book came about, this travel blog. So it just kept my mind busy, which is very important to me.
That's a very good way of, looking at life uh, from the eyes as well as from the lens, and then reflecting it back into the memory. There's nothing like it, and good that you are putting it out somewhere, where it holds a value for others as well. I mean, if people can share your experiences by reading your blogs, there's nothing like it. So now you're working on a new project, a new series of books.
Yes.
Just can you walk us through that, please?
Now I'm working on the series called Master English. So this is more exciting because with this, I have done away with any illustrator, any editor, any designer. So, my previous book, correctly speaking, taught me a lot. And I learned a lot of techniques. So with this book, I designed the cover, I designed every picture in the book, and there are lots of pictures because the first four is for children. So 5, 6, 7, 8 have fewer pictures, but 1, 2, 3, 4 have lots of pictures. So making those pictures and even typesetting them, so all that has been very exciting. I'm done with 4 books completely, and the other 4 I've written, but now it's the editing and the polishing is still on. So what I've done is the 4 books that I've done, I put them on designer flipbook, and now I'm marketing the flipbook to schools and principals. So in case they feel interested, they can have a look at it instead of people going to their offices and leaving those huge pile of books like they come to mine and okay, ab dekh lena, and then no principal ever sees those books. They go into the library. So this kind of thing I'm trying out. Let's see how it works out, and I plan to self-publish it. So correctly speaking, it taught me a lot of technique of book, more than book writing. So I was just a writer before. So now I feel I'm an illustrator, designer. So adding a lot to it.
That's great. So I really wish that it comes out good and it does a lot of good to the people around. As you said, these skills are not mandatory, but they are necessary in one way or the other. Interviews, as you said, and it is sometimes uh, a big setback if you cannot make
Yes.
through just because you could not express yourself enough.
Yes.
So, if I ask you before we conclude, what are your 3 best advices to the young parents of today so that their children can have a better tomorrow?
I'm also a parenting coach, and I hold sessions on parenting under a banner champs, which is motivating and honoring parents. So advice I keep giving the parents one to one, but parents, I think what the present day parents they lack is the sense of discipline. And since the sense of discipline is lacking in them, it is translated to the children. So that is, I think, one thing I would say, that it was instilled so much in us. And in my life, it stood me in very good stead. That sense of purpose. The second thing is developing accountability in children. If you see these days, children are not made to be accountable. There is, the parents are always justifying whatever the child does. So I don't want to politically comment, but there are young children going into things that they shouldn't be going into, and parents, instead of taking it up with them as a disciplinary issue, they are justifying their actions. So this eventually are giving us adults who are not accountable. So that I would advise the parents to make children accountable for their own work, not help them at every step just because there's. I'll give you a small example. The teacher gives some homework. The child has not done it. The parent does it for him so that he doesn't get scolded in class. Let him get scolded. Let him bear the brunt of it. And exposing children to life. It's very important to teach children life skills. Today, Vikram, whatever I am, when I look back, the kind of training I got in hostels, where I was made to fend for myself. No mother, no father came to, protect me from anything. I learned to share. I learned to struggle. So today I can do all this. I'm accountable for my time. So I feel very sorry for children whose parents don't instill these three values in them. So I would advise the parents to let children explore, let children experiment, let them make mistakes, and let them learn from mistakes. Life is such a huge learning experience, and there is so much to do. Each day should count in your life. And anybody can do anything. A person like me was science postgraduate. If I can write books, anybody can do anything. You should have the passion and drive for it.
So viewers, if you are watching us for the first time, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay notified. And keep posting in your comments. If you have any question, please put it on. We'll answer them back. Mrs. Rana, it was such a pleasure talking to you, and I really thank you from the bottom of my heart to having spare time to come on this show, and you have shared such beautiful insights. Thank you very much from Sip and Talk with Vikram.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I hope one day when you become a celebrity, you remember this talk.
Always.
Thank you.